Oh dear. I still stand by what I said before about James Gunn being a master at crafting narratives and developing characters centered around team dynamics, two essential elements to crafting a competitor against the MCU, but one thing I didn't take into account before was how Gunn's tendency to choose weird projects to direct would translate over to his role as a producer. As a director, he managed to flesh out those weird ideas into fully realized and well-developed projects like Guardians of the Galaxy. But as a producer, things aren't quite as simple. You'll have to trust someone else to have the same ability to properly develop these weird projects into good projects, and that may or may not have the same results. I say this in light of Gunn releasing his slate of projects for his now redubbed DCU that the studio will be releasing after this year's current slate of Shazam, Flash, and so on, which includes projects one would expect with new spins to them, like a Superman film with a young Clark Kent and a Batman film with a father-son angle, a few projects that skim the surface of recognizable while still being more so fresh, like a Wonder Woman prequel show and a Green Lantern, or should I say Lantern detective show, and then there's the more Gunnish projects, the ones you knew he had more of an input on than the studio, mainly Creature Commandos, Waller, and Swamp Thing. Well, okay, maybe Swamp Thing will at least cater to the horror crowd, as it already has on a few occasions, but the rest? Gunn. Which isn't inherently a bad thing, except, again, he'll have to trust someone else to flesh out those weird ideas into profitable blockbusters. Should we be worried about this? I ask this not because I think any of the projects are bad. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad being as good as they were makes me want to revisit the film Super after my first viewing around when it first came out. I dubbed it as a steaming pile of garbage. However, apart from Guardians, which at least had the pre-established MCU fanbase to spread the word of mouth to other sci-fi enthusiasts, his style hasn't exactly been blockbuster material, and despite Guardians' quality and acclaim, his name isn't exactly household like Chris Nolan, both evidenced by the severe bombing of the Suicide Squad, which didn't even really break the mold on HBO Max during its day-and-date release. And it's not like Creature Commandos is a universally appealing idea on its own, but perhaps that's why Creature Commandos and Waller were pitched as TV shows, with the first major film release being Superman Legacy. The niche style that films like the Suicide Squad and Scott Pilgrim try to bring to the big-budget film genre has served independent films, a business that Gunn is intensely familiar with, and TV shows like The Boys and Peacemaker much better than big-budget blockbusters. So yeah, it looks like he learned whatever lesson he had to learn from the Suicide Squad bombing and Peacemaker landing him the role of CEO of a comic book movie empire, so perhaps he has gained some wisdom. But then there's the other elephant in the room, the fact that the guy with the weird ideas and insane stylistic choices is also penning Superman Legacy. I was really hoping that his writing resume could supplement the idea of him having some variety in his writing style, but no. Not really, just some more raunchy comedy and horror-based material, which really has me hoping that he'll write Swamp Thing, but doesn't really help Superman's case. Heck, Batman would have been a better franchise for him to tackle. The only thing I can say is that his writing style can be overpowered by whatever talent he gets to direct the film, as was the case when his Scooby-Doo scripts had what I hope to be the opposite effect of being hilariously written but poorly executed. It's also equally as possible that he's trying to dwell away from the comedy and take a more serious approach with this. I mean, anybody with a brain cell knows that outside of maybe some parodies, raunchy comedy, like in Gunn's other projects, is the polar opposite of the approach that any sensible Superman film would dare to take. On top of that, though, it's not like a serious approach isn't outside of his skill set. I mean, Guardians Volume 2 took a serious approach with this material, and the only problem with that was how hard it was to cry over a deceased laser tag mascot, but Superman, being something that wasn't designed for comedy, wouldn't have that issue. The only other issue I have is how all this is going to flow from one to the other. I mean, how are you going to go from DC Monster Squad to Amanda Waller espionage to a Superman movie? The narrative isn't exactly spelled out, but Gunn claims that each project is going to lead to the next, and as I've mentioned before, I trust that he has the skills to craft such a narrative, considering how successful he was in his prior work of making a tree, a raccoon, and a wrestler all work on the same team. Just like before, it's too soon to tell for sure if we should be worried about Gunn's new slate, especially with this being his first Feige-level producer role, but as it stands now, it seems like he's at least taking a balanced approach. He knows what would make for good movies and what would make for good TV. He knows where his talent belongs and where he should let someone else take over, and he knows how to take one step at a time and plan ahead for the future rather than throwing all the marbles into one project without proper development. Glad someone could knock some sense to this frickin' studio. So perhaps we should imitate such wise tactics and take this bad boy one step at a time. Oh, and I guess the Authority is a part of that lineup too, sort of like a Justice League composed of peacemakers.
I cherish peace with all my heart. don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it.
Yeah, that. Sounds like his forte. Not much else to say.